I just asked her if we had a lot of visitors.
Morning.
She said no, yeah.
It's a full house, buddy. Thank you for saving the seat. I know. I wouldn't let anybody sit there.
Good morning. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please rise for the prayer and the flag salute. Trey, would you lead us?
Okay. Father, we stand before you today as we're leaders, and we know that you raise leaders up and you bring them down. Just pray, God, we make decisions here that reflect a lot of money, and a lot of that money is taxpayer money. And I pray that it's in all of our hearts to be a servant and do the best with the people that we can. So help us with wisdom and guidance in the decisions that we make, in Jesus' name. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Item 3, any citizen desiring to be heard?
Yeah. One person here.
Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is David Franklin. I live in District 2. I wanted to speak as a citizen about the safety sales tax. I know you guys are going to be talking about it in the next few months and set for renewal next year. And in order to talk with some facts and figures, though, I'm going to talk about the Sooner Fire Department. So, you know, as a fellow taxpayer, I'm investing in the Sooner Department, as all of you are when you buy stuff in Logan County. And I had the opportunity to start volunteering with them back in 2007. And in 2007, they were an ISO 9. And if you don't know what that is, it's on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is the worst. And the reason for that was basically they were set up for grass fires. They had tankers and brush pumpers, tankers they got from forestry, and they welded together the parts themselves to make those work and move forward with that. But in 2020, they became an ISO 4, which is a huge improvement and helps with everybody's homeowners insurance in their district. And that success story is the result of the hard work of Chief Wes Rose, who since retired because of health problems, and now still volunteers on our board, and our current chief, Jeff Ware, and also, honestly, the investment made by the taxpayers with money. Last fiscal year, the money flowing into our department was $127,000. Of that, $102,000 of it was the sales tax money. So we closed 29 warrants last year for M&O, spending that money on things. Even though we got, for example, a free truck last fall from forestry, it was a chassis, we still spent about $40,000 turning it into a fire truck. And I've seen, these guys turn, nickels into dimes by adding a lot of volunteer labor and time and donations and things to it. But the sales tax has been a huge part of that. Last year was the busiest year ever for Sooner. In 2022, they did 246 runs. And out of those 246 runs, 128 were mutual aid. And primarily City of Guthrie and basically the department south and east of us as well. So we do mutual aid with Woodcrest east of Douglas and mutual aid with Guthrie east of Division. And so about 128 were mutual aid, that's about half of those runs were mutual aid. Now the runs we did ourselves, 60% were medical runs. And so things that were free, used to be free for training and things, we're paying a lot more for training, a lot more for medical and things like that as well. So, basically I just want to conclude with this, and that as a taxpayer, I think it's been a great investment I've made in my local department to help my homeowners and help our district, but also countywide with all the mutual aid and things that they do. And if I had 30 minutes, I could talk for 30 minutes, but since I have 3, I'm going to end it there. And I'm going to give my outline notes to Troy for her to put in minutes at her discretion. Thank you.
I have a question for you real quick.
Okay.
Is sooner a Title 18 or Title 19?
Well, that's a great question. We were Title 18 originally. We became Title 19 back in 2019 so we could participate in the pension system, but we don't receive any ad valorem tax revenue or anything like that because we were originally in Title 18 and the homeowners we never had an election to vote
They're not a
us
district.
Okay.
as a district.
Okay.
So that is something that we talk about that we might want to move forward with
Yeah.
and explore. But if I could add one more thing is we leased a truck for $250,000 back in 2016. It's the first time we ever leased anything. It was because of the knowledge of the sales tax. So if we could have that vote, that'd be great because it would make it easier to plan long term. But as it is, we pay cash for everything except for that one truck, and we made sure we paid it off before the tax
The
expired.
reason I asked, I was on the board at Woodcrest when
Yeah.
Tom Stigner Farm Center,
Yeah.
and we used to be a Title 18.
Yeah.
When we voted for Title 19. However, in the far reaches of Woodcrest District right now, they're a Title 18.
Right.
So part of it's 19, part of it's 18, and so anyway.
Yeah, we'd love to vote Title 19. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But that's just something we haven't gotten organized yet. That's a good thing. So.
All right,
All
thanks,
right,
sir.
thanks.
Alrighty, item 5, consideration and possible action on approving the minutes for August 15th, 2023.
I'll move, we approve.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, the motion carries. Thank you, guys. Where we at? Item 6, open bid 2024-0101 for used 2010 or newer semi-truck for District 1.
We received no bids.
No action on item 6. How many did you mail out?
Were these bids to buy or to sell?
Yes, to buy.
Okay.
We mailed 9 bid packets went out by mail, advertised in the newspaper, and placed on the county website.
Pretty tight market. No one has a truck they want to sell.
Alrighty, no action
Hold on to
on
mine.
Item 7, meeting with representatives of the Department of Forestry and discussion wildfire mitigation grant projects.
Make sure they give us a.
So I invited the forestry guys to kind of talk about, the projects and some things that we can possibly do with, applying for our FMAG money from the Simpson fire. So I'll let, who wants to, Eric, you want to go? Sure. This is Eric Ashlock with forestry. He used to be emergency management up in Washington County in Bartlesville, and so he's transferred over to forestry, and they had big fire that involved FMAG money. So I invited him and his guys to kind of talk to you guys, give some ideas of what we could do, maybe, applying for that FMAG money.
Good.
Eric, you have the floor.
Please come up there.
Well, like you said, I was on the other side of the house. I was a deputy emergency manager. I was also a lieutenant on the fire department for Washington County. So unfortunately or fortunately, we had some experience with FMAGs. Opportunities to learn, make our mistakes, and it's like the hair club for men. I like the product so much I joined forestry. Aaron, he helped us out quite a bit in Washington County, but the story begins back in 2015. We had a fire that was declared as an FMAG. Our neighboring community didn't have
What's that term?
FMAG.
Yeah,
What does that mean?
It's a fire mitigation assistance program.
Okay.
So, part of the process, you're going to look at reimbursement to everybody that responded. Recover some costs. It's like public assistance on the FEMA world. But with that, it unlocks some opportunities for some mitigation dollars 7% of that, which is planning. So the thing that we ran into in Washington County after 2015, we unlocked about $384,000 of federal funding that was available to the community, but we didn't know how to spend it. So we looked at everything from goats, of course the fire chief wanted a new fire truck or something, and it's not for that, it's for mitigation.
Right.
Fast forward about a year, we were on Circle Mountain, which that's part of this big story here. We were up on Circle Mountain, we had another fire. There's an endangered species place up there that was reintroduced bald eagles. So we cut hand lines for 16 hours, we lost outbuildings, and they pulled all their research and everything. It was a really bad day. The next day, Steve Maddox with Forestry and the State Hazard Mitigation Officer were up there looking at the damage with us, and I made the comment, we've got $384,000 sitting here that we don't know how to spend, we can't spend it. What can we do? And Steve Maddox from Forestry said, do you have a CWPP? I had no clue what that meant. It's a community wildfire protection plan. So in the FEMA world, there's all these gotchas and all these catches to applying for funding. The CWPP for us, ultimately what it did is allowed our fire guys to look at, what keeps them up at night, where their hazards are, and then they prioritized it. So we looked at our whole county from one end to the other. We're 11 miles wide and 41 miles long. So roughly seven fire districts. They all came together. We came up with 4 project areas that were a lot of concern. One of them, unanimously, people were losing sleep over. I said, this is the one area, if we lose this, it's going to be a real problem. So we got a plan together. Aaron and Brian, which Brian unfortunately is not able to be here, came in. They did some mitigation work for us in 2 of the projects out of our 4 that we had identified as our highest potentials. So they get this done in November of 22. So March of 23 till April 1st, we have a fire, another FMAG fire. We've lost 11 homes. We had task forces. It was the same day you guys had the Simpson fire. And, so you had all the resources in the state that we didn't get. So we fought fire. It was a losing battle all the way around. But the fire came into the Circle Mountain area where the mitigation work had been done. The fire chief called on the radio and said, hey, this is the project area, correct? Yeah. I said, yeah, I'll be right down. He said, so you trust it? And it gave me pause. So I thought, okay, yeah, I trust it. I trusted in what Forestry had done for us. They had evacuated the whole neighborhood, and there's some videos out there that Stephen would be more than happy to share, I'm sure. And if not, I can send that to you. But the interviews with the neighborhood, they evacuated the neighborhood. Task forces were there. They lit it off on this lease road behind the homes. Well, the fuel had been mitigated, all the ladder fuels and understory that Forestry had done for us. So I think, what was that, 120 acres or 100 acres roughly up there? Lit it off. We had slop over spot fires, but all the task forces went north to the other fires. And we kept one task force from Ottawa County in there, and they went in with hand crews and put this out where it slopped over behind the homes. Hours later, that night, the residents got to go back home. Not so much more than any smoke damage. We lost cars down to the south. We lost a home to the south, but that made a believer out of us. Now, all the task forces we had actually went to the 4th area that we had identified, and we hadn't done any mitigation work on yet. Lost outbuildings, cars, and things like that. So what I'm here to do is to support you guys at looking at planning. That's your first stage. Come up with a plan. It's not all exciting or anything, and it's not a heavy lift. It's something that you guys can prioritize, and as funding becomes available. For instance, I'm the Community Wildfire Defense Grant Coordinator for the state. There's some Infrastructure and Investment Job Act money that's available. So mitigation activities, you can apply for grants up to $10 million to mitigate some of your fire risk. And there is cost share waivers. So that's another thing. I know we had a meeting in Guthrie with a bunch of people from the area, and immediately they have identified areas that, you know, are concerning to them. You have, I believe, if I recall correctly, the opportunity to apply for cost share waivers. So ultimately, it wouldn't cost your community any money at the end of the day if you're eligible for that, which I think you are. But the first step would be come up with a plan, whether it be apply for a competitive grant through us to get the plan, or use some of your FMAG planning dollars at 7% if Stephen was able to work with the state of Oklahoma, get that done, and then next year and the year after start applying for, you know, grants to get that done. That's what we did. And what this does
Is that private, was it you mainly dealing with private property, tribal lands, or?
okay, so this particular grant we can work on private property, public property, no federal. The tribes actually have, they can bypass a lot of what we do. And that's one of the things that we worked out with forestry is how can we spend federal dollars to work on private property? That's always like a big no-no in a lot of people's minds. But, you know, I equated it as the storm shelter grants that we were doing. You know, you're spending federal dollars there because it's a voluntary participation. Well, forestry came up with a hold harmless agreement. So our step was, here's the plan to the community, to the people that own the land. So if you're in an area that's identified as risk, here's a prescription, if you will. This is what we're proposing to do. We had some meetings. Not a lot of pushback at all. I think the only question we had was what, you know, what happens if somebody gets hurt on my property while you're doing the work? And it's like, well, we're covered because of this. Then, you know, Brian, who was our fuels mitigation guy, he walked out there with them, did a walkthrough, visualized what they were going to do, came in, did the work. Everybody was satisfied. You know, it was interesting because, like, when we were looking at this originally back in 2015 to 17, you know, California, you know, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado have fantastic plans, but nobody had ever implemented it because they were too worried about actually doing the projects. We didn't run into that in our community. You know, people in Oklahoma seem to be a little more accepting of that, going, you know, I get it. I'm willing to do the work. It's not a heavy lift from anybody, really. It's just a team effort. So that's why I'm here.
That's my worry is we need public buy-in, property owner buy-in. You know, I don't want to give the impression that it was difficult. It was not, but I don't want to make it seem like it was too easy. It was shockingly simple for us because of the process. And
one of the biggest concerns of our property owners, private property owners in Bartlesville, was that they thought we were going to come in and clear cut. That's not the case. We're coming in, we're clearing the underbrush, we're getting that canopy lifted up. Our main goal is pretty simple. We want the fire to stay on the ground because our local firefighters can, once they lose control of that, that's when we start losing houses, when it starts jumping, you know, going and crowning atop trees. So that's one buy-in for a lot of homeowners, that we're not there to clear cut. We're not there to destroy your new rural home.
How far back off of county road do you work?
It just depends on the project.
The fuel, or?
Yes, and the fuel as well, fuel type that we're dealing with. As he mentioned, Brian's our fuel specialist. He's the one that oversees the project. He's also the one that would write a prescription, and it would be laid out as to what we would do. One thing that Eric, I don't know if he's mentioned it or not, but without the plan, we can't do the projects.
I do realize that a lot of people in Logan County do not understand that they do live in the forest. It's the cross timbers, but it's a huge one. We just don't have signs up saying, welcome to Mark Twain Forest, you know.
We have one over in Meridian. Yeah, there's one sign. It's been there for 100
How
years.
much money is available on this grant?
so for the project areas, so for planning, it's $250,000 for the plan, but you guys may have more opportunities on the FMAG side of the house with that mitigation dollars. That's something that your emergency manager will have to weigh out with you guys and say, okay, which makes more sense strategically? Because at the end of the day, what I care about is I want you to be able to experience what we experience. I want you to go, fire comes through, everybody goes, oh, you know, it's a bad day, and then they come home. And the firefighters are safe, you don't lose any property, and he doesn't have to do paperwork for the next 6 to 8 months. You know, then they're done that. But on the projects, you're looking at 10 million available. And it's on the mitigation side. So he's doing Tinker Air Force Base, did 2 projects in Bartlesville, did, was it Turkey Mountain in Tulsa? That's a prime one. You know, these people are finally waking up and going, you know, we need to address this because the fire behavior is getting worse.
Yeah.
So part of this grant, it's available to buy the equipment to keep the roadway, the side of the roads, the right of way mowed, and we're looking at it as fire break.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the eligible activities is brush mowers, personnel, things like that. So you want to look at it holistically with a plan and go, okay, equipment-wise, anything over $5,000, you're still going to have to track it for federal. But you know, like consumable chainsaws and things like that, that's supplies. Part of the grant, what they'll ask is sustainability. So, you know, what Aaron and Brian had done for Washington County, we were looking at, okay, how are we going to maintain this? So the homeowners were going to actually do the burnouts with prescribed, we were working on a prescribed burn association. Then we were going to use that as a training area for our firefighters, right? You know, we were going to do fall burns because of the type of terrain and foliage and leaf litter.
That's the best time of the year.
For us, for that particular area. So your area may differ. So, you know, we brought in NRCS, like I was talking about Sutton Bird guys. They came in because, you know, the clear cut thing was a concern for a couple of people, but for us, after we had everybody in there, it's going to improve wildlife habitat, groundwater, you know, improvements. Of course, we're there because of fire, but I wanted a win-win. And aesthetics are a huge deal. And what we realized is it's so subtle, the differences, but it makes all the difference in the world. I mean, you're talking lemon stuff up about this high to 9 foot up. Fire's not going to climb up into the top of the canopy.
Yeah.
It stays on the ground, like you said. And we experienced every bit of that.
Years ago, Mr. Geisler, I believe is how you say his name, he told me that Logan County needs to have prescribed burns terribly.
So it's the smoke management seems to be the chief complaint that you're going to run into, and it's scary for some people that are just uneducated. I mean, obviously you guys are fire wise, you understand this obviously. But the plan is the easy part. It's the hard part, but it's a good educational tool once you push that out into the community. When somebody asks a question, here's the plan. And when they look at it, you know, when I made the phone calls, it's look at page 12. Here's where your neighborhood is. Here's the risks. And then here's what we plan to do with it. And it was, I mean, honestly, it was the easiest sale I've ever had in my life. People got it. They're going, and I'm not a good salesman, obviously, but it resonated.
So we can contract with y'all to help draw this plan up?
Well,
Is that, I mean, how's that work? We got to draw our own plan, or?
I'm not sure. Some agencies have, so at this point there are 2 countywide plans in Oklahoma. We just funded one, which we don't fund them anymore. They're one of the last ones we had, was Dewey County. And of course, we all know Dewey County has their fair share of fire. Their emergency management director did their plan. Other options are, I believe there's some grant writers that that would be able to be contracted with this as well. I can only assume, since we did that with Washington County, I don't know that for a fact. So, but that would be something we'd have to check with our supervisors about whether that would be an option or not.
it gets down to capacity and bandwidth. I mean, so when I was on the EM side, we did contract because there was a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt on my part because I was ignorant. Like, you know, one day I don't even know what a CWPP is, and now you tell me I've got to write one. He's probably in the same boat. It's not that difficult once you have all the players. You've got all these fire guys in here that know where their risks are. that you invite in some of your other stakeholders, some of your neighborhoods, once you start identifying it and say, look, this is what we're talking about. It's, you know, I mean, you're in government, you get it. There's always somebody that's going to complain, but
Yeah.
generally what we ran into is we had buy-in across the board because it was a real eye-opener. You had the Simpson fire. Everybody in the state knows about your fire.
Yeah, fire scares people.
Yeah.
To do anything.
So, you know, when you invite people to the table, they're going to go, okay, what are you going to do about it? Here's what we're going to do about it. We want your input because you want them to be satisfied and feel, I mean, getting rid of fear is important. I mean, it really is.
So overall, you are trying to protect somebody, probably their greatest asset that they'll ever achieve in life.
Absolutely.
One additional point to this is that we have a template, a fillable template that we can send to you or whoever does this project. And that's what Dewey County did. They didn't recreate the wheel. They just took our template and made it for their whole county, identified each and every community in their county.
Let me, yeah, Guthrie, say, things here. I have a landowner that purchased 120 acres, and he's already obtained some grants for a removal of cedar trees, fire breaks, and he doesn't want them all gone. He's actually getting ready to create a hunting lodge on this place. It's very remote. And but then and that's just something he's doing on his own there. Here's my situation. I've only been in office since the 19th of June, and I had a tractor with a boom mower on it that would reach out 16 feet to trim tree limbs back that encroach on the roads here, and it was wore out, and so I finally got a brand new one purchased, and it goes 22 feet out, which is much better. But I also inherited a tractor that my predecessor bought brand new 2.5 years ago, and at 300 hours the transmission locked up on it, and it's never been fixed, and so I've turned that over to the DA now. I don't have a tractor or a mower that I can mow the grass alongside the, in District 2. That grass it's dangerous from a perspective you can't see, but fire hazard, when that's dead and that fire hits that's going to be a huge blowtorch. Now, I'm in process, and I hope to be able to buy a new unit within 3 weeks now. And I did get a new boom mower. And I can tell you, I'm probably 2-3 years behind on mowing, the encroaching trees. I could really use another boom mower. I'd rather have another boom mower because it has some advantages over that tractor with that right wing offset. It can reach a lot further over. It can not only do trees, but it can reach over and knock the grass down close to fences and places like that. So is that something that's possible to obtain?
So in the CWDG grant, there is a section in there for that type of equipment for your maintaining your right-of-ways, as fuel. You'll have to look at the notice of funding opportunity to make sure it fits with what you're trying to do. It's not a response grant, but it's for upkeep and fuels management, which,
Right.
Herbaceous, woody fuels, that fuel.
Yeah.
That's how we do it. So this particular grant. So I can't say yes for sure, but yeah, it should.
Yeah.
You just got to look at it and go, okay, how do I word this, and does it meet the spirit of what they're asking? And I think it does, based on what you just said.
And then I've got, there's a lot of places like this, but I have one in mind right now where I have large, thick cedar trees literally right on what I would say the fence line, and there's no fence there. And I need to widen this road, and I think the landowner will allow me to take those cedar trees out, push them on his property. I'll have to get permission to do that and let him burn them at some point in time.
would this be something that that grant would also apply to be able to help remove those cedar trees?
Well, removal of the invasive species, sure, but to widen road, no.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it as a fuel treatment, then does it fit into your overall plan?
Yeah.
Like when you were talking about the hunting lodge guy,
Yeah.
you can't use the duplication on that, but you can use it as complementary. So in your overall landscape, you're looking at, okay, he's doing this, so he's going to fill in that. It's in an area that we want to address, so let's get this piece over here and this piece over here. Circle Mountain's a prime example. So we used a certain funding source for the first 100 acres, but we haven't completed the rest of the mountain. So, as we apply for grants for that, we would go, okay, how do you do the rest of this solution without duplication of funds and efforts?
When you raise the canopy, are you using labor individuals? You're hiring individuals to do
It
this?
depends. I mean, we had
We have equipment, skid steer, mastication equipment,
Okay.
and we are looking at adding another skid steer probably this year.
Yeah.
So a piece of machinery or piece of equipment could have a dual or multi-purpose, but for this grant, we need to keep our terminology about it.
Yeah, when you're applying for it, for this. If you're gonna mow the area that you're trying to mitigate, yeah, that's what it's for. But if you go up the road, nobody's gonna come back and say, oh, you're just doing it for this. I mean, it's like, my truck, I'm here, but if I have to go somewhere else, it's different cost codes, but,
Well, I probably have the heaviest wooded area of the 3 districts
so.
because the Cross Timbers is basically east of I-35, which
Yes.
is my district. And,
Well, so that would be part of the planning process, is you sit down with your fire districts and they'll go, hey, Commissioner, what's your concern? Everybody's gonna have their concerns and they're gonna have to look at it because they're gonna go, and obviously you were on the board of a fire department, so you have a lot of knowledge, right?
It's an awful long time ago.
Yeah, but still, you don't lose that. So as you go through the planning process, everybody's weighing it out, going, okay, here's where our risks are. And then you have to prioritize it. And like, for instance, ours, 4 projects, 2 of them were in the city of Bartlesville. Go figure, right? One was cedar smack dab right up in the middle of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
That was $13 million of risk in Circle Mountain. What do we have, 8 million total risk or 5 million?
Somewhere.
Yeah,
So
5.
you evaluate the value of the property,
Well, life,
the buildings, and you consider that your risk there.
lives and property.
Yeah.
So, that's the first thing.
You don't assign a dollar value to lives, though, do you?
Well, FEMA would, but I don't.
Yeah.
It's the truth, but what we looked at is, okay, the density behind the shopping mall was there, the fuel load was there, we had fine fuels going into Cedars right up to the housing addition that was crammed. Well, Circle Mountain was a different problem. It was fine fuels into the cross timbers, with scrub underneath on a good grade, going right to the houses. And the house that we lost that actually was on Circle Mountain at the south end, she had a magnificent wood deck that was just, it ran up into the canopy, ran straight through the trees, went right into her deck, and it was a rock house. Went to the ground. It was on the ground in 5 minutes. The house next door was a wood frame house, had defensible space.
Yeah.
It survived. And the only thing we did is knock the guy's firewood over.
That same area, that Simpson fire that we're talking about now, the wind happened to be going kind of north and easterly. I've been involved in the past with 2 other fires that basically were the same area, and they were doing a pretty good threat on the city of Guthrie itself. They were coming straight north.
Yeah.
And, once we're fortunate, and I don't want to discount any of the folks that did lose property out there, but we're fortunate that little area didn't have as much housing. It will, but whenever it moves, it's going into housing.
So that's what a lot of these jurisdictions are running into. Aaron's been all over the state for the last 3 years. I think Lawton's growing. There's all these places that are growing, and that's part of this planning process. So you do a plan, it's good for 5 years. On this grant that I've got, they'll actually honor projects within it that are 10 years old. my experience is that, you know, government moves so slow. You do something today, 10 years from now, you might get it executed on. These grants close October 31st. So let's say you start working the planning next year, this time, you're going to go ahead and apply for some of these projects. So you're playing the long game on this. But it took us 7 years to get to where we can get you in a year to 2 years. And it's, you know, I don't know how to say this, but you know, it's not that painful. It's just somebody's got to be a spark plug, and I mean, you've got representatives here that, you know, they have a need, they've expressed the need, they're willing to do the work. I mean, that's half your battle right there.
So what do we need to do to get this ball rolling?
That's totally up to him.
Spark plug.
Here's your spark plug. So I'm just here to talk options.
I mean, it's like, kind of like what you're saying as far as the, you know, long game. I think as far as some of the just departments and jurisdictions, I think, you know, the short game, and a lot of, all of you guys have been in the county, you know, the last large property loss fire that we had, you know, was probably the 2000 fire that started in Oak Cliff and burned north. I think it's probably one you were speaking of. But since 2000, you know, I know in Oak Cliff particularly, the short game was preaching defensible space and having a plan for each property owner, and that actually played to our favor during the Simpson fire, where that fire burned through a lot of the same area that happened back in 2000. The problem was the same things weren't being preached on the other side of the interstate, and that's where we had the pretty considerable loss of property once it jumped into the cross timbers there on the other side of the interstate. You know, obviously this grant's it's the long game, like he was saying. You know, Stephen, us, all the stakeholders that are going to be a part of this is, you know, this is going to be long term. You know, but short term, there needs to be plans in place by each jurisdiction as far as preaching these defensible spaces and kind of putting it back on the property owner, especially right now while it's still fresh in everybody's mind. You know, getting these properties cleaned up, doing what property owners can to try and get rid of some of the invasive species of cedar and things like that people have historically used as privacy breaks and wind breaks and all these other things. That's what they started out as, and now, you know, you're dealing with cedar trees that are, you know, 2 feet off of people's homes, whether they be brick homes or modular homes. You know, going in and talking to people about that, and like I said, for the last 20+ years, that's what we've been doing in Oak Cliff, and it did change the outcome as far as the fire's effect on our side of the interstate. But it's definitely not something that's going to, you know, happen overnight. But I think as long as we strike while the iron is hot, that's going to definitely help us, even in the long term. You know, as far as y'all's concerns about getting onto people's properties or buy-in or anything like that, I don't think that we're going to have any issues. I really think it's going to be pretty seamless, like you're saying.
When I was campaigning for office, I would go to a lot of residences that the fuel they had right next to their home was unbelievable. And in an area with a big area of a lot of fuel, but they had it stacked up right next to their home.
Yes, sir.
Myself, I have a new home. It's all metal, skin and everything. Have no fuel anywhere close to it. Keep everything well mowed. I've got a lot of cedar trees. Their canopy's 15, 20 feet high. My wife calls them dandelions, but anyway, you know, that's the way I do it. But these people here, they're crazy. And do you talk to them about it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean,
okay.
You know, the Simpson fire, you know, is definitely one of those historic fires. It's one that we're gonna look back on forever and talk about. It's just like the 2000 fire. You know, people still talk about the 2000 fire. You know, they made a documentary about that fire, that fire's effects particularly on modular homes. You know, there's quite a few people that are either at Oak Cliff Cliff or retired from Oak Cliff or at some of the neighboring departments now that are actually in that documentary. This fire is going to go down in history as one of those fires. But since then, you know, we've been able to get in front of people on the smaller fires, you know, the half acre, my backyard burned, or you know, something like that. Those types of incidents that are more common. Able to get in front of them and do some educating. You know, we have pamphlets that we have in all of our rigs that when we do this educating, we leave them with this pamphlet, and it lays out everything. There's 15 steps, I believe. It's 15 steps for defensible space and giving the fire department the best opportunity to save your property. You know, because, you know, as you can see, I mean, you know, $10 million, up to $10 million for mitigation.
Yeah.
I mean, you could easily use every bit of that money just to mitigate a couple of miles of your area.
Yeah.
Right. But if we can, in the short term, put it back on the citizens to maybe start this process, it would help. And you know, being proactive when we make those interactions with the public, medical calls, fire calls, whatever it is, that's a great time to go ahead and do that. And we've taken advantage, like I said, we've taken advantage of it for the last 23 years.
I think we intend to support it.
Yeah.
Jeff, do you have something?
Yes, every year the district ranks the highest priority in Logan County is brush management and red cedar eradication. This year we received and approved 23 applications for brush management from producers and
What do you mean from producers, Gisette?
landowners.
Okay.
And the problem with this is the state allotted us $38,000. That's not going to clear. That's not going to clear. We might have 7 people, 8 people that can get that done. We do promote every year, and even last year we had 3 property owners that did some controlled burning around the property. NRCS also promotes controlled burning for properties. It's just that we've been fighting a losing battle. I mean, if we're only getting $38,000, we're not doing anything. You know, it's just it needs more funding. I did lobby with the Senate and Congress in April for some more cedar money to eradicate for the state. Just 30,000 is, and that's across the board. Every county got 30,000. So it's just not enough to combat the infestation of red cedars and other brush management in the county.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm glad to get the 30 though.
Can I ask a couple of questions, please? I just want to make sure I'm understanding clearly. So you mentioned the $250,000 for a planning. So I guess my question is, are we talking 2 separate types of grant fundings, one for planning and one for implementing?
Yes. But
And
you have to have a plan to implement.
okay. And is there most grants come with time periods?
Yes, it's a 5-year, 5 years to execute on it.
Okay.
Complete. There's a 10% match on the planning component, 25% match on the project component. However, I believe Logan County is eligible because these grants are for underserved, low income. So I believe, and I think, did I send that to you? I think.
Yeah.
So you would ask for the grant waiver, is what you would ask for. But
You mean the match waiver?
yes, the match waiver. But the other thing that Stephen and I had talked about is you may have an opportunity, because these are competitive grants, the ones that are under this.
Mm-hmm.
There is the 7% P component that's strictly for planning that comes out of your FMAG. It's not for the response and all that. It unlocks all this so you can do storm sirens. So for instance, what I did at Washington County is I ended up doing a storm shelter grant, did the CWPP with that, and then there was some discretionary money I couldn't spend because, it was a smaller percentage, but, it's $384,000, so we did storm shelter grants, got a plan done for $20-something thousand. But that's non-competitive. You can make a phone call to Kim Jensen, say, if I can, will you? And they'll say, yes, apply for it. You don't have to go through the competition. You guys will have to work out what is available. And then we'll come back and review that once you get your plan in place and apply for these competitive grants, and you'll have a solid chance at getting something, is the way I see it.
So the closing period for the application that you said of October 31st is for the application for the planning grant?
For about CWDG, that's on.
But we have to have a planning before we can apply for the other. So really, feasibly, we have between now and October 31st to take the first step, which is the planning grant.
On the CWDG side of it. Now, if you choose to go through state emergency management and get the FEMA portion, that 7% that's in there, you don't have to compete for that, so to speak. And I think I don't know what Kim said, would you get priority on that or not?
Yeah, we have till November 7th to apply for our FMAG.
But that would be for doing the planning.
We can include that with
Right.
Yeah, that's.
So in other words, and I guess what I'm trying to make sure that I'm understanding clearly and I'm sure anyone watching is this isn't going to be an immediate answer. It's
No.
going to take time over the course of years before we would have equipment or we would have burns or we would have, it's a
Right.
long term.
It's a long game, but it's a lot shorter than what we went through. So let's say you apply today for a CWDG to do a plan. October 31st closed, they are graded in November, and let's say Logan County is chosen. February, roughly Valentine's Day, you'll probably know here's what they're, allocating for your plan. Then you go forth and do your plan. So then you got a year, and if you've got a plan in place, you apply for that next year. So if he goes through OEM and FEMA on the planning grant, November, they'll probably turn it around, you'll know in 60 days or less. It may be quicker that way to do it, but as you guys are going through the plan, you'll have a template for this particular grant, and you'll say, hey, this is something we really want to work on, and you'll have time while everybody's fresh and flesh it out. And then he says, hey, here, I dusted it off, here's the project. And I've got people doing that right now. They're like, hey, I've got an addition here, I'm going to dust the plan off, or dust the project off next year. And they'll have shovel ready, if you will. So brush mower, we need it next year. Okay, it's in the plan, here's the area. It's like storm sirens, I need 6 new storm sirens. Well, here's some money, they're in the plan, let's do it. It's part of an action plan, if you will. That's what we're doing.
Stephen, what do you need from us to get this ball rolling?
Well, I'll do the notice of intent, through the state and bring that, for you guys to sign that we're gonna apply for that Simpson Fire FMAG money that's available.
I can't speak for the board, but I would assume the board's on board with you doing this. I'd like to see you do it.
I can't speak for the board either, but I'm real interested.
I'll go ahead and speak. I think the board's behind it.
All right, I appreciate you coming up and
Thank you all.
Yeah.
informing us on this. So thanks a lot. Can we get your name for the minutes, please?
Aaron Williams.
Thank you.
I did my men's training at the bar.
Nice.
Anything else, you guys? All righty, thanks for coming up. Y'all can hang out, leave, whatever you want to do, up to y'all. Item 8. Consideration and possible action on fiscal year 23 annual financial statement of the treasurer.
I sent this out to you all, so you should have already been able to look at it. SA9 requires that the treasurer provide a report. Basically, it's the bank balance, the total with all the different funding and different types of money that we have at the end of the last fiscal year. And so, it was 30 million, but that's not how it really sounds what it is, but every individual fund. So that's.
Make the motion to approve.
Well, I'll second your motion.
I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
I'll vote aye on that motion.
Thank you. All opposed, the motion carries. Item 9, consideration of possible action on letter of engagement with Architect in Partnership LLC for services on the courthouse and annex project.
So this was a back and forth with Jeremiah and the architect. They really wanted to do their AIA contracts, but we don't have enough information to really contract on. We don't have solid numbers and applying yet. So they developed.
Too many 2BDs, wasn't it?
Yeah, so we came up with a letter of intent with Timberlake, and so now this is with Architects in Partnership, Matt Graves, that's been working on this, and they finally worked out the kinks on the letter of engagement that ultimately says, this is their hourly rates, they're gonna provide us services, and we will work towards then entering an official contract. So.
Well, what if our project changes?
There is no binding on either one of those. I mean, the project can change. We would still use them for whatever changes that we did, but.
We're not, I don't think you're talking about a change order on the project, but going a completely different direction.
I think we'd be in control.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a motion, we approve, sign the letter of engagement with Architects in Partnership LLC.
I'll second the motion.
I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Shouldn't we make clear that courthouse annex and courthouse?
That's what it's what it said on the agenda.
But I'll vote aye.
Aye, all opposed, motion carries. Item 10, consideration of possible action on contract with Fire Brand Construction LLC in an amount of $70,100 for bid 2024-08 for repairs of the interior and exterior wood, trim, and sidelights on the courthouse.
I'll make a motion, we enter into this contract.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. He give you a start date?
After October 2nd.
Awesome. Needs to be done. Item 11, consideration and possible action on contract with Zizer LLC in the amount of $123,139.49 for bid 2024-09 chip and seal on roads in the East Oaks Edition. I will move to approve this contract.
Is that your project, Dave?
It is.
I thought it was Davis Road.
Well,
There's another.
they're paving Davis Road this morning, so.
Oh, Mark, sorry.
Sure.
Sign the new line there.
We got a REAP grant on this project and we're just getting all the paperwork done. Did we vote?
You made a motion, did you need a second?
I did.
All right, I'll second it.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, motion carries. 12 is consideration and possible action on interlocal agreement with the City of Cimarron City whereby Logan County District 3 will provide labor and equipment Cimarron City to provide materials for repairs on streets located within Cimarron City. I will move we approve.
I'll second your motion.
I have a question on it, Aaron.
Absolutely.
So this is an interlocal agreement, so what does that mean? How does that work?
Well, we're gonna do labor inside their city limits and they're gonna provide materials.
Okay,
So law allows us to work with inside that.
for anything
Under
less than
5,000.
5,000 population?
Population's
Yeah.
less than 5, it's road work only.
Okay,
You
so,
can't go work on the road unit or water well license.
yeah. So we have to have permission, we have to go through this procedure to do those kinds of things.
Oh, I just think it puts everything on the up and up.
Okay,
I know what's going on. So.
okay.
It's the reason I did it, just to make the board aware that we're working with inside the city limits. And the city agrees to let us do it. So.
Yeah. We're gonna vote on that?
Yeah, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, the motion carries. Item 12, consideration and possible action on ingress-egress agreement with Roxanne Buckners to place trees on property located in the northeast quarter, 3315 North 2 West, 1565 East Simmons Road, District 2.
And this is where we are pulling trees in preparation for the paving of Simmons for a half mile there. So I move that we accept this.
I'll second Charlie's motion. I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the motion carries. 14, consideration and possible action on 23-24 contract with Arcade Black for a copier for Commissioner's Office in the amount of $1,442.52.
Are we purchasing that or are we leasing that?
It's
It's the
the,
annual maintenance and supplies, the toners.
Okay. We own it, but this is, and they provide all the paper, the toner?
Not the paper, but all the
Okay.
toner,
Ink. Okay.
maintenance.
Okay. We need to.
I'll move we approve.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the motion carries. 15, consideration on possible action to acknowledge receipt of notice of tort claim from Donna Bosvet and forward to ACO Claims. I will make a motion we acknowledge that we received this.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion?
Should I keep my mouth shut about this or explain what happened here? Keep my mouth shut?
I'm not
Hey.
gonna tell you that, sorry.
You big boy, you do what you want.
I didn't.
The board can't take any action on
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I mean, we can acknowledge and
Yeah.
support, and then ACO's gonna decide.
I've already talked with ACO about it, and they're gonna.
Yeah, but you're more welcome to talk about it. I'm okay
So,
with it.
what it was on Pine Street, and it was a pooch up right in the middle of the lane southbound, right at a hill. If you pull out to the left to miss that, you could be coming into a face of a car. If you pull out to the right, you're in a ditch. And so evidently she hit it, and it tore up the undercarriage of her car. And I drive that road every day, and I saw it, and I called it in, and we got out there and fixed it within one day. It was bad, there's no doubt about it. But because we had not been warned and given time to fix it, they're probably going to deny that claim. So, anyway.
Just put you out a technical term.
Well, no. It's I'll keep my head in the terrible
Gotta put you out going on too.
But you ain't laying down on the road.
I have. Did we vote on that? So we
Oh,
have-
yes, you did,
All
yes,
right.
you did.
Yeah.
Where did we have? Consideration and possible action on detention transportation claim in the amount of $781.32 for the month of July 2023.
Well, I'll make a motion, we approve the detention transportation claim.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Good.
Motion carries.
Could we just have them walk there the next time so we won't have to spend that?
We're not spending, that's money we're receiving.
Oh,
They're
okay.
paying, they're
Oh, okay.
reimbursing the sheriff for
Okay.
making those
Okay.
transports.
Can we do twice as many of them, Sheriff?
Item 17, consideration of possible action on a resolution accepting $230 donation from Jeff and Martha Miller to District 3 for crushed asphalt to be placed on County Road 73 between State Highway 77 and Coltrane. So she called and she was at the meeting that Charlie gave a speech about, and she contacted me, wanted to know if she could donate and buy some crushed asphalt. So I'll move that we approve.
I'll second it. Then I have a question after we vote on it.
Motion and second, any further discussion?
So, my question is, I'm potentially going to have some people do the same thing, and who do they make the check out to?
They can make it out to Logan County District 2.
Okay. And that's the way to do it, not just Logan County in general?
Either way,
Okay.
that's not a big issue.
Okay.
Okay, as long as we have it identified, you know, who it's from and what it's for and who it's going to, and then we can create the required resolutions.
So I've got two situations where I have additions, and the people are going together to buy pipes where I can rebuild the road. And so probably is going to be multiple checks.
So, which is possible, I mean, we
Yeah.
can do it, but let me ask you this, do they have an HOA?
One does,
Okay, so
and
is...
it's defunct. You ready for this?
Okay, that happens a lot. We
Okay.
could give you a big list.
But they're still taking money. They still pay $50 a year, anyone that has a mortgage. Nobody knows where the account is. They're looking for it right now.
Okay. Well, the reason I asked was we have a couple of different ways of going. If they're gonna give their money to the HOA and the HOA is writing one check for the donation,
Mhm.
we can do that way. We can do multiple. I just have to craft the resolution to identify every individual and their amounts and what it's for.
And if
Okay.
they do it that way, I don't believe they're entitled on a federal tax break at the end. If they do it individually, they're given, and it's covered under the tax code. Of course, we're not allowed to give anybody tax advice. They
Mhm.
seek their own tax
Right,
rates.
right.
Well, they all can get copies of the resolution and each person's tax person would advise them.
On the resolution, but the way I understand it, if you write your check to the HOA, that's not an allowable deduction, only to the governmental entity.
Directly.
Okay.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, the motion carries. Item 18, consideration of possible action on a resolution disposing of a 2021 15-foot Rhino batwing mower by sale to Rogers Mill County District 3 in the amount of $16,000. I will move, we approve.
I will second that, because that 16,000's been part of what I'm gonna use to buy a tractor and a mower with. So,
I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the motion carries. 19, That's a fouled out plug.
Yeah, mine needs to be regapped. Yeah, pretty good.
Is that a Bosch or
Oh, it's a champion.
Champion? Okay, there you go. Stay with that American brand instead of the German.
Champion. Yeah, oh,
He knows where it's made
Chris
now.
Evans is a champion today too.
Yeah.
But he kinda had a spark plug hairdo.
Chris looking for donuts is what he's looking for.
They have heat on them, I'm looking for some warm. Freezing.
Freezing cold?
Well,
It's like a spark plug. You put it on. You wanna sit up here in the hot seat for a while? They just put all that travel off. It's just travel on Yeah, I get the trouble multiple again.
Transfers, only 2 for the sheriff. You don't need.
Ooh, good transfer.
Sent all those people, nobody had a truck for sale.
It's crazy. Maybe it was the, well, you said ordinary.
When it's,
Look, purple auction.
You know, got a couple of tractors that need hydraulic system, keeps overheating on both of them, they've been out of the shop. Came from that purple wave.
Okay.
You know, it's not the auction company's fault, they don't know, they're just selling
Yeah,
stuff.
sure.
by the way, since Purple Wave came up, and Sheriff, this is you too, it's a message I have. I had a meeting with Jeremiah yesterday, and Purple Wave came up. He doesn't want us to consign anything to Purple Wave until we contact him first.
Okay.
He has some issues with their sales contract. And he
Okay.
ran into it with Payne where they had to tweak and change some of the contract language. So he just asked me yesterday, don't move forward with anything till we get with him and they settle that contract stuff.
And
Okay.
to our advantage as a county overall, for the circuit engineering districts, if we sell them in. those
Alcoholic
auctions,
beverage tax.
Share back out of whatever it sells,
Yeah.
but not with Purple Wave.
Christopher, you gonna miss out?
I have.
Well, miss out.
Alcohol beverage?
What number?
I have.
6
in addition.
23-1.
Donations.
24-9.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Good luck.
I'll give it to you.
You rather do that in District One.
Just like Bob Barker, you need to go with it.
Me, along with 65 counties.
Uh-huh.
That
And then the
will end or
resolution.
conclude consent.
That's the time you get the tax break.
Yeah.
And I reaffirmed what Jeremiah that. He said, I don't want to get into giving people taxes back, but whatever. You need a motion for a consent agenda?
I need a second.
Well, I'll second it.
I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, motion carries. 20, consideration of possible action on claims for payment for August 2023.
Oh, you wanted that announced
Need to verify, yeah.
Make sure Meridian got their fair share. No, let's make sure Meridian got their fair share, it's on there. $23.
He purposely put mine on top, so I don't see that.
No, I did not. Those were the way it was handed to me. Are you gonna do anything with that nifty little information I
Yeah.
sent you?
I am.
Okay. Then I won't get into it.
I was reminded when I was at the State of the Schools Thursday, I need to bump that up. Last week was one of my busy weeks.
And you say over here, is there something else on the other side of the sign?
84.32%.
What they're saying is, they went over the PA.
That's-
Oh, okay,
Tech
gotcha,
units.
gotcha.
Yeah, 84.
Countywide.
Out of compliance, right?
There, yes.
Okay. Is there a sign here that we need to do?
No.
That's a flag for us.
Sure, none of these were highway district two.
It's not, they will be, but
Yep.
you can, on these, you can just make your initials
Oh, okay.
if you want. Yeah, these are, they kinda, as soon as you make a big issue about someone else's, boom, you'll have a handful.
That donation goes into my account.
I'll deposit today, so you'll have it on Wednesday.
I'm talking about the, oh, yeah, from Ideal Homes. That's what's off.
Right, Wednesday. And then what we'll do is I think we'll cancel and reissue those.
You can't just adjust down. Or does it need the same date?
We need to just,
Well, just make half of it out of donation, half of it out of.
well, we need to use all of their donations. Did you not encumber 100%?
I did.
Okay, I see where you're going on that. Yeah, we need to use all of the 12.5 on a PO out of it and then adjust, yeah.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah, that was like a couple of years ago. Is there any money out there I can, in the title to? You got anything going on?
Was it $75,000 I said you can have?
I'm
No
working,
roof right.
I'm working on that. No creek bank erosion problems we can address.
No, but I do have Mark's money.
Can you put it in my account?
Yeah, so
He's
whenever-
farther away from Mark than I am, so.
Yeah, well, so Mark, I just need receipts. And
Yeah, we need to get back out there.
I got the money, I yanked the money out of the state's hands so we could have it here.
Well, thank you for that.
You-
Never know when they're gonna tie it up somewhere else. But that program's, it looks like it's really taken off.
Yes, yes. I can get you some more, if like we can continue that program, you know,
Yeah,
that would be great.
we're willing.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion, we approve the claims.
I'll second it.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, the motion carries. Item 21, consideration of possible action on purchase card payment for August 2023.
They were saying yesterday at the AGCO meeting that a lot of these conferences, CODA, AGCO's thinking about going to it where they're not taking POs, a lot of the motels
It's
down.
become horrible.
All mine that I go to, I have to.
Yeah, but even that's becoming a problem because now, you know, the point of the P card was allow us to make those reservations. But now the hotels have reached the point that if you are not in possession of the card with your name on it, they won't. So like yours, when I made your reservation, I called them, they had to send me documents for me to fill out and to use the P card because it's in my name and not yours, and send it back. It's all becoming to the point that they're gonna force it to the point where the employees are gonna have to front up and get reimbursed.
I did.
Which I don't have a problem with myself.
But many don't have the ability to do a lot of that.
Yeah.
And there's nothing we can do. I mean, it's the businesses that have changed
Yeah.
with
A
it.
lot of those commissioners were saying their clerks just won't get on board, but that's something I have to figure out.
Well, in fairness, I didn't for a long time. The administration and the responsibility of it is put back on the clerk.
Have we made a motion on this? I'm able to.
I'm not even.
Thank you.
I'll say it.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Hey, you got a solution.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Peggy, did you have something you wanted to say?
No.
You sure is getting red,
He's a glow plug.
22 comments, announcements, questions by the Board of County Commissioners or other county officers and department heads. Stephen, you had something a minute ago.
No, I'm good. Thank you for letting Forestry come and talk.
Yeah, well, thanks for getting them.
They were very good.
Yeah.
Damon, you got anything?
No, sir.
Troy?
I'll wait.
Charlie?
Yes. I know this is a surprise you here.
Yeah, it shocked me, I'm gonna be honest.
So, I brought up at our last meeting that when I went to the Unpaved Roads Conference, the presenters there said they would be most happy to come to a county and do a presentation. So I have contacted them and they are asked them to give us 2 dates that they can come. And so I have got that ball started. So that was that there. I believe that's all I have, other than I do have a question for the sheriff before he leaves today.
Yes,
So,
sir.
Only thing I got is, I went down, me and Troy and Mary Murphy and Chris even tagged along with us. We went and toured the DHS building for space to rent while we're redoing whatever we're gonna do. So I've been in contact with David that works for DHS. Anyway, we can buy that building a lot cheaper than we can build a building. I think we could buy it. It got appraised for 2.8. I think you could buy it for, I'm not sure, 1.7, 1.5, somewhere in there. Over 16,000 square feet. What we was looking at to build 11,000 square feet for $7 million. We could buy that. 15,000 square feet.
Now, is there people still in that building?
There is, but if we bought it, I mean, that would be an option. We can either go rent them the space or we take possession. To me, it was kind of I personally thought we could buy that building, move our county offices down there, take this 6-story down, renovate this building, and then we could renovate the courthouse, and this could be a temporary courtroom while we're renovating that. And then when we got done renovating that, we could put the DA in here or whatever. So it's something for you guys to think about.
What's the drawback?
The biggest drawback that I see is, I don't know that you all realize how much interaction all these county offices have. the sheriff's office, the court clerk, the DA, all with the treasurer and with us with purchasing and all of that. So I'm not saying it wouldn't be possible, but you would be breaking that link. That is a constant daily between those offices. I think the bigger one is with the treasurer because of the money having to be moved and transported. Everyone makes deposits
You mean
daily.
from there to a bank here?
No, they deposit with the treasurer, so now they do it right here. If we were moved down the road, they'd have to take it down the road.
So if the district attorney accepts restitution or something, then they.
Yeah, so all money that comes in, if you are bonding on a cash bond out of the sheriff's office, the next morning that money is taken from the sheriff's office to the treasurer's office. All the money collected at the court, all of that filters to the treasurer's office.
Is there a problem with someone in the sheriff's office bringing it down there?
I think, again, I think that's stuff that we would have to look at. I'm just throwing out that I think that's the first thing you're gonna hear back if this is seriously looked at.
Let me just throw this out there though. Say we went with that route. We bought that building, say you gave $2 million for it. That leaves us $4 million to renovate the courthouse and this and build a parking lot. And, you know, because if we go with our first plan, if we tear this down and build a whole new building, then we're still going to try to nickel and dime the courthouse back together. This way it gives us the money to do the courthouse at the same time.
How much, does anybody have any idea of remodeling the courthouse, what that might be?
I think it depends on what you are wanting to do. I mean, in all honesty, that's a really broad term, so I don't know. And no, we have not had any professionals look at a cost to remodel because we hadn't had a plan of what we could or couldn't do.
$500,000, million, any?
Several
rough idea?
million.
Several million?
Well, at the end of the day, though, we could do all the projects with the money that we have. We're not going to the taxpayer saying, look, we need money to renovate the courthouse. Just something you guys thinking about. I mean, made sense to me, but
So,
it's just me.
now this is the first I've heard of moving the DA here.
Well, I just threw
And,
that out there.
and what about, I mean, the possibility of that, and the court clerk too? Would you move, you'd leave the court clerk?
Probably leave her in
over
there.
Okay.
And you know, one of the things, Molly, that you've been concerned about is the election board.
Yeah.
The option to move them over here, I think, is a better option.
Will you do that?
Why would we want to?
The elevated building makes it difficult for the handicap access, and Monty's looked at many ways of trying to alleviate that problem.
Well, there's a rampway.
Yeah, but
there.
the ramp's here and they're at the other end of the building, and that's
Yeah.
where, when you're pushing somebody in a wheelchair, it can be cumbersome.
Probably the biggest problem with the election board is the parking. You know, I mean, when the early voting, I mean, there's a lot of people there, and it's right next to the sheriff's department, and, I mean, they got a lot of visitors as well, so.
Well, I think we need to make a decision fast.
I think we need to, maybe, I don't know if we need to put it on the agenda or what, but I think we need to move forward rapidly.
We have a ticking clock on the ARPA money.
Sure.
So is this something that we could go into executive session to discuss?
Technically, no.
I'm open.
We have a meeting next Tuesday, I'm sorry.
So,
We have time to get that on the agenda today for that.
yeah, and you guys set it up however you'd like. I'm not sure you're really at the point of taking an action until we get a little more information. Or what would the action be? Number one. Number two, I think we would need to touch base with Timberlake and the architects to see where they fall, if that type of thing is something they're still gonna be with us and working with us on.
Well, their scope of work would focus on the courthouse and demolition and parking lot.
The DH building is gonna have to be fully renovated.
Well,
Executive session, item 3 is discussing the purchase or appraisal of real property.
I mean, I don't need to do it in executive session. I just ask, so. If we're talking about making offers and stuff, you know, I didn't know if that needed to be.
I think
I
that
think
part of
that'd be
it
wise,
could
yeah.
be, but I'm saying not the whole,
Yeah.
it's a narrow.
Yeah,
Sheriff, your office wouldn't have a problem if the county administrative side moved farther away from the jail? I know it'd be a deputy.
Well, it'll be an inconvenience, but
Many counties have their jail and sheriff's
separate
way
locations.
off different places,
Well,
right?
Kingfisher County's jail is 3 miles from the courthouse. I mean, we're talking about 4 blocks. And we don't have, we can go on with Plan A. I'm just saying this is an option that we need to.
But the option, in all honesty, Monty, maybe that's
Well,
what
you're
the
talking about
action.
leaving the court clerk's office in the courthouse.
Right.
So, I mean, nothing's gonna change on our end. The only thing is, like, interdepartmental stuff like that, we have to drive to get it.
the reason I wondered about, even moving the DA here, what if we didn't do that and sold this property here?
Well, I think we need it for parking just for the courthouse. That's my opinion.
So, what if you, I don't disagree, you need more parking there, but what if we tore down the building next here and made that parking for the courthouse, put parking in on the west and sold this building with that on the west?
I'd be hesitant to sell. We don't know what's gonna happen. We do know growth is still gonna come, so that building's gonna eventually need to expand as well.
I think
So
you
would you
right
wanna have to reacquire
right
property?
here where we are would be a mistake. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, so there's a lot of property in front of that building, between that building and Division Street. Does that property go with that building?
Well, first off, that property is actually school land, so it's like a 100-year lease for the land.
So the building's actually sitting on school land, so DHS does not own the land. They just have a lease on the land. So we'd have to enter into a lease.
And I'm sure it's a 99-year lease to build that building there. I mean, I doubt they did it without that,
I do
which
not know.
generally legally is considered ownership is what it is, Charlie.
But I do have an appraisal on that building. I'll get them to email you an appraisal. So you can look at it, kind of understand. Anyway, so.
So can I throw something out?
Absolutely.
Okay, because we have a ticking that's getting really critical that we gotta do something. I think that maybe what needs to be is a single person, whether it be you or one of you, you've already been talking, to actually try to formulate, negotiate a deal. Because if we can't get a deal that we can live with the money that we have, you see what I'm saying? To be able to make that decision to go that direction.
So maybe we need to make an agenda item for Tuesday to authorize one of the commissioners to try to negotiate a deal on that building and set a dollar amount.
If you want an agenda item, fine. If not, I kind of see it under chairman's powers.
I certainly see it under its powers. Or duties, responsibilities, or.
It's a done deal.
I don't think legally there's a problem with you trying to work that way. You can't commit to it.
Sure.
Or to it, so I think you're good.
10-4. Any further comments, announcements, anybody?
I like the idea. I like the idea.
I will say the one thing that Monty and I have worked with, and you all knew, well, I think a little bit before you actually came in, is getting some work done in the courtroom on the immediate side. Because no matter what happens in the courthouse with the renovation, the 2 judges' offices and that courtroom aren't going anywhere. They're not going to change. And so I've already had a drywaller come out and give us a quote and trying to look at doing some stuff. After looking at everything, I think it's going to be a big project. We're not going to be able to piecemeal it just because of the cost. So I'm still working towards that, but we may be able to get some funds added from the court side towards the project. I'm waiting to confirm.
And we talked to architects too, hopefully.
So that, the project maybe, you know, funds are limited, so hopefully we'll be able to get some cost share out of the court system for that.
So ultimately, the way we were going, we could have probably torn this down and built a new building here and use up all of our money we have and still need millions of dollars to remodel the courthouse.
I think what we had talked about was that, you know, this started with trying to use the 6-story, and then it became try to build an addition to this, and then it became just clear the block as really the best financial decision to do that way. And then we would have to piecemeal as we could renovation in the courthouse. I think that was what was on the table as the final, this is what's on the table. Now this is the next option that he's discussing, buy that building, renovate it, move 4 offices, I guess. Well, that would depend, because the commissioners could stay in this building. You know, so now we're looking at a whole another bunch. Would it make more money available for renovations in the courthouse? Yes.
Is there a need for the court clerk to have more physical space for storage of records?
The court clerk has the entire 3rd floor of this building, or virtually the entire, in records. The 6-story.
Right now, over here, right now.
Right now. And they access it multiple times a day. So part of that discussion was demoing this building, but we have the old jail.
Okay.
That she could be relocated, her building, her storage needs to the basement.
Would
of
they
the
call that
courthouse.
dungeon storage, or what would they call that?
So-
You know, I mean, we can go any direction with this building. I mean, we could turn this into storage. I mean, it could be the DA storage and the court clerk storage. I mean, the door's wide open. I'm just saying, if we went that route, we got money to do 2 projects. If we tear all this down, build one, we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna nickel and dime the courthouse.
So here's a question here, possibility. What if we move the DA's office over here and what is currently the assessor's office? And we stay here, and we put the county clerk, treasurer, and the assessor in that building down there, which wouldn't consume all of that building, and lease out the rest of it.
It would consume all of that building.
Would we consume it all?
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, it's just an option, but the first option would be, can we get a bar on?
Mhm.
I've never even been inside the building, so
I'll send you that, I'll have Nicole send you that appraisal. It's got a few pictures on it, but not many.
I kinda like the idea of the commissioners being one by the other in an administration building, if you will.
Well, in that building down there, it's already got a conference room. It's got a safe room in it. It's a pretty nice building.
But there would probably have to be some remodeling.
It's definitely gonna have, we're gonna have to put money in it to build petition walls, because you don't want all the offices out in one open room.
So if we move there, what would be the possibility of renting some of this space out to someone? I'm just thinking of some income
Sure.
there.
Anything's possible. I'm just trying to get the ball rolling one way or the other. You know, we're gonna get a plan.
Yeah.
And it just.
We're just thinking out loud right now.
It just hit my head that if we, say we gave $3 million for that, had $3 million in that, and we got $3 million to do the courthouse. I mean, you know.
You're not gonna rebuild the courthouse, you're just gonna
No.
improve what's there.
Well, if we got Troy and Sherry moved out there, we'd go in, the first thing we do is make a courtroom downstairs. And we get that set up, we have a temporary court in here, then they can redo the courtroom.
Jury room.
I spoke with Judge Jewell yesterday with all of this, and he said the biggest issue they have with the court part of the courthouse right now is with only one jury room. Even though it's upstairs, they only have one. And it forces Judge Corley and Judge Dooley to have to stagger their trials, which has really backlogged
Right,
their system because they cannot hold 2 jury trials at the same time.
right.
That is ultimately what needs alleviated.
Number one.
He said that the courtroom doesn't, a second courtroom doesn't need to be as big as the big one that we have, you know, that's not the issue. It does have to have a jury room on it. But that, according to him yesterday, is the biggest thing. They need a courtroom with a jury room so that they can hold 2 jury trials at the same time.
But the one we have currently, the big courtroom, it's pretty drab looking in there.
Well, and it's not going anywhere. And the carpet is just, I mean, yeah. So basically what we've come up with, that we're looking at, what would be a bid package, depending on how much funding I think we can pull together, would be to drywall out the actual courtroom. So that puts all the wiring.
Rather than just paint it? Or?
Well, and it's because of the wiring and the conduit and the mountings, that
So
would
that's
be.
exposed?
Yes, that would put it behind the walls. Because of the cost, I talked to Judge Dooley yesterday, he was gonna talk to Judge Corley. Their offices are all the wood paneling. They brought up drywall, Judge Dooley did, but he would lose about 6 inches of space if we fur out to drywall, and it's kinda tight in there, so he'll be okay if he can get it painted. Get those.
That's a dual?
Yes.
Okay.
So if we drywall the big courtroom, paint the court reporter room, the 2 judges' offices, and because for at least the foreseeable bit, they still need the jury room, and if you haven't been up there, it's desperate for help.
I was sworn in up there not long ago.
Well, not in the jury room.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So paint it, get it all painted. We need to run some additional electrical. They want to mount some monitors up, and those need to be ran. But the other request, it's going to be a little bit struggle with on how electricians in. There's no electrical near the attorney's tables, so laptops and things like that they can't plug in. So they'd like to run some plugs in the floors if possible. That would allow electrical for during court time.
It's concrete floors.
Let me.
It is concrete
Let me ask
floors.
this question here. How long, I mean, laptops have batteries on them. How long does the trial go that you would have to operate off of
You
the
know,
battery?
honestly, every laptop I've ever owned, the length of the battery is it varies, in all honesty. And it's a convenience for them to be able to plug it, even a desk light, if you had somebody that that's really what.
Chris could probably answer that question on the laptop battery thing.
Yeah, I mean, a trial can go from 9 to noon, and then 1:30 to 5, sometimes 1:30 to 7, and then jury deliberations can go longer. And so you want to be in the middle of a high-profile trial, and then the battery goes dead, and you have to wait 5 minutes for the computer, and jurors have to be dismissed, and there's extension cables running all over the place with duct tape everywhere right now.
So, like, and I appreciate this information, like when it goes to the jury, your attorneys could then charge up your...
Correct. The district attorney's office can go to their office, but then the defense attorneys would have to find a plug-in somewhere away, and usually defense attorneys don't want to be around audience members and kind of need their own little area because of different cases have different levels, but they like to stay in their little area. So they would have to leave the courthouse.
Do they need a room also, or?
Well, if they have plug-ins,
They would, okay.
Sit right there.
And we had that guy come out.
That guy's way out of charge.
Yeah, we are so far past him. And then, of course, the flooring, the carpets all throughout, because it is really bad.
Yeah. It goes back to 1905, was it?
Well, I don't think the carpet is, because there's some linoleum under it. There's a place I looked and that, but.
About 6 layers.
But,
That's why it's so soft when you walk through the...
you know, it's kind of, in all honesty, the project from first discussion has kind of grown, but it's grown it needs to grow to encompass these areas. just based on experience of dealing with and some of the bids that I've recently done and that, I think that to accomplish adding in the jury room, because the court clerk did come down and talk to me about adding that in as well as the judges. I think we're looking at probably between 80 and 100,000 as a bid project, but I am waiting to hear what the judge says they may be able to help put forth.
If we had a place to put people per floor, you could almost have an empty shell. Other than the DA's office, that's nothing but the balcony for the courthouse, for the courtroom.
The whole thing with the DA's office is, it's been condemned. I mean, it shouldn't be in there.
Only because of the fire site.
Or lack of.
So that's why I just brought up, you know.
But I think that with this renovation, that is included, and that alleviates that issue.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, the door's open on any of it. I just brought this up for discussion.
I like the idea. I mean, I know it's gonna be a change and inconvenience, but
Anywhere we go is going to.
Not insurmountable, though.
Right.
Yeah.
And it may not be the permanent fix, but it kills two birds with one stone at this time.
Just to give you all an update as well, we are in the process of access control systems. They have installed. We can go active. We finally worked out some kinks that they had on the two lower doors. The main doors, while installed, I was not thinking. I did not connect having this done and then having all of the repair work that we just signed.
Right.
So they've stopped. We haven't activated the front doors because at this point, I think what we're going to have to do is call them out to actually undo what they've done so that they can rip out and make that repair and then come put it back.
Okay.
So, one other thing I'd like to bring up is the opiate deal. We signed that deal to have the training done with the schools.
Yes, and I still haven't been able to track down a cost for the Narcan.
I see Oklahoma County is buying Narcan vending machines, putting in the courthouse. So I don't know about all that, but
It goes, I just read yesterday, Narcan goes over the counter next month, or in September.
so we're going to do the training with the schools and all that. Is it a possibility that we can do training for some of the inmates and maybe, I mean, not necessarily use Narcan, but use that for a prevention? Can we use that money for prevention?
We can. The idea of using it for education and prevention is there. So whether it be with inmates or school kids or however we can, drug awareness, intervention training, yes.
I can see where it benefit both. I mean, if we could touch one person in jail, you know, I think it's money well spent. But if we can touch one kid in school, it's gonna be money well spent. So we got it set up. We signed an agreement to hire that company to go do the training. So what's my next step? How do I get that ball rolling?
So again, I was trying to track down the buying. I mean, even the health department can't tell me where we're buying it. Because, so that's the thing. And then it would be scheduling with each of the schools to get pulled together.
So I guess my point is, who does the scheduling? Me, the company we hired? I mean, who's going, how do we handle this?
I can't directly answer that. I mean, I guess we can send an email to the schools and to Heartland and say, okay, you know, do you all want to, I don't know, Monty. I mean,
do you mind emailing?
We can facilitate trying to get that scheduled.
Thank you. Well, I'm getting like old Charlie. I just come up with all sorts of.
I'm the minor leaguer now.
All right.
I'll make a motion to adjourn before one of y'all go off again.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys.